It's basically the trolley argument. For those of you who haven't already encountered this, this will be a good, introduction to it. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with this. We're just going to look at a few different cases, and then crucially, whilst we are trying to be as objective as possible while looking at the issue, we're going to try and bring in a cultural sort of fate spin on it, because, well, it's fate circle. I mean, now I want to mention at the very offset that the guy who inspired me to do this lecture was Michael Sandel. He's an eminent Harvard lecturer, and I really think you guys should take a look. So he's a lecture series called Justice that you guys can find on YouTube, and you might want to look into that. So this is the basic problem. It's fairly self-explanatory. Does anyone want to have a go at explaining what's going on here? Yeah, go ahead.
Basically, you're like on a train, in a train station, and you see like one fat person on the other side.
No,
This is not the like one. 5 workers on like the other side, and you can either let the train like run over the 5 people, or like pull the trolley and like let it run over like the person.
Okay, so he doesn't have to be fat, but yeah, that is the first and most basic case. So basically, what's happening is you are this slightly balding man over here with the lever, and the train is currently heading for 4 people. If you pull the lever, it changes track and it goes to kill just the 1 person, thereby saving the 4. Now, in a nutshell, what's actually going on here? So I've already described the problem, but the main question we face now is, how do we justify our choice? And the things we look at when we make a choice are basically, we might not, but in a nutshell, the things we look at are intention, consequences, and situation when we make a decision. So when you make any moral decision, you basically, the things you look at when you're making any ethical dilemma, you look at, okay, what was the person's intention in this case? What were the consequences of his action? And look at the actual situation itself. So we're going to try to apply those things to this. So for example, a teleologist or a consequentialist, or someone who's associated with what's going to happen as an end product of this situation, you might argue that all that matters is producing the greatest happiness in any given situation. Now you guys have probably heard of this as utilitarianism in day-to-day life. That's basically associated with, how can I do something such as to produce the greatest happiness in a given situation? An intentionalist might argue that your motive in this case is the most important. What do you want to do? What is your aim? And a deontologist will argue that something is wrong because it's intrinsically wrong by its nature. So like the Old Testament is kind of a frame of, okay, you do not steal because God says stealing it's wrong, and therefore it is wrong by nature. So you don't want to do it. Now, we're all kind of a bit like this baby in a way. So I mean, now instinctively, what would you do without thinking of all the problems? So let's have a poll. If how many of you would switch the lever, and how many of you would not take part and would just let the train run over the 4 people? So hands up if you are going to switch the lever. Kill one person. Okay, so a vast majority. Okay, that's actually a decent number of people who wouldn't. Okay, so there's about 15 people who wouldn't. Right, so now, here are the basic views on what's going on. So the first one is consequentialism. As we know, it's associated with the greatest happiness. Now, the problem with this one is all these people are different, which is how it gets into the situation of the situation. Well, the situation of who's in there, who are the people on the train track. So for consequentialist purposes, we have to presume that all these people are equal, or just to put it fairly, a sort of mathematical sample of people who are all exactly the same. Now, therefore, it's obvious that those of you who put your hands up would be right in this situation in consequentialist terms, because, well, it's 4 against 1, and if they're 4 equal people, 4 clones of themselves, so to put it, then they're obviously going to be having greater value than just the 1. Now, so this gets a little bit complicated with situation ethics. So we're looking at specifics. For example, what if one of the people on the 4 was Hitler? Now, are you really going to kill that 1 person instead? Or how many of you would change your opinion now if you knew that one of those 4 people was Hitler and the other 3 were just sort of your average Joe, and the 1 person on the other hand who you were going to kill was also a good, he has a family, they all have families, and one of those 4 people is Hitler? Now, how many of you would change your approach? Okay, good. So about 6 or 7 of you would probably change your approach towards doing that. Now, then, on the other hand, you could also have I mean, if it's Gandhi, if the one guy you're about to kill is Gandhi. Now you think about you think about consequentialist terms. I mean, looking at both of these cases, what you're doing is, by saving Hitler, obviously we're presuming this is before the events of the Holocaust, you're actually creating a lot of pain if you're saving Hitler. And in this case, you're creating a lot of pain by killing Gandhi, because arguably his contributions were far more valuable than the contributions of your average Joe. But we can't bring in our subjective feelings about this in terms of morality. Subjectivism and objectivism are two very important things. I think we had a lecture about this already, but the idea that we're not the authors of objective morality, so what we decide, it's all going to be based on our subjective opinions on the matter at the end of the day. You might think what Hitler did was wrong, but you can't verify that that's the case. Even if mass consensus flows that way and everyone's saying, yeah, what Hitler did is wrong, or what Gandhi did was, really noble and honourable, I mean, at the end of the day, those are all just opinions, and they're not rooted in any sort of objective morality. So that's how situation ethics might face a little bit of a criticism in a way. Deontology, deontology, so surely these situations don't matter. If we're looking at what's objectively right or wrong, whether it's Hitler or Gandhi, or even if it's your mother, I mean, I'm sure most of you, if the one person you had to kill to save those 4 people was your mother or your father or your sister, or anyone you're really close to, you would not pull that lever, because you'd probably want to save them for your own selfish motives. Now, the thing about deontology is it would say you're doing the objectively wrong thing. I mean, it's a really tricky one with that one, and you can't overcome it, because I know myself I would probably not pull the lever if it was someone I really valued on the other side. Now, intention is the most obvious here. It's wrong if you're doing this to kill one person and not 4. It's right if you're doing this to save one person, and it's to save 4 people and unfortunately kill one in the progress. Now you have to think about passive and active involvement, because these are really important. So what criticism someone often has is that, I mean, they just say, well, why would I want to pull the lever? If I pull the lever, I'm actively taking part, and I am murdering this one man. I'm morally blameless. And if the train track runs over, that's the natural order of things. I'm really sorry, I don't want to take part in this. Second, you pull that lever, so to speak, you made the choice, and that one guy is dead because of you. Sure, you saved 4 people, but at the end of the day, you're the one who killed that one person. That's active involvement. It's not passive involvement. You have to be aware of that. And on the other hand, someone might say, okay, if I don't pull the lever, I'm blameless, surely. Well, then someone will turn around and go to him, no, you're passively involved. You are making the choice not to pull this lever. That's a really, I mean, again, you're blameworthy either way. What do you do? So I want to give you my personal solution first. It's directly related to Catholic teaching, actually. So believe it or not, it relies on the most obvious of the systems we looked at above, which was intention. So what the Catholic doctrine of double effect was created for was abortion. And it was basically seen as a route to get out of the issue of what do you do in abortion. And what it basically said, how I would apply it to this case, so you guys can understand it, so to speak, is my intention in pulling this lever is to save 4 people. What happens as a consequence to that one person is not my fault, it was not my intention, it's not a part of my moral calculation. My moral calculation is purely to do, I'm pulling this lever, I'm saving 4 people. There is an unwanted consequence in the background which I can't control. Okay, so now Aaron is going to talk to you for 2 minutes about how he would approach this issue as a Hindu, and he's going to give you a quick background of slightly Catholic teaching in this area. Just 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay, so all of you know that I'm Hindu because I did a presentation on it earlier on in the year, but many of you won't know that I actually went to a Catholic school for the first 7 years of my education, so I'm quite clued up on what the Catholics would do. Tzar's completely right in the doctrine of double effect. However, there's another more abstract view in Catholicism, which is an offshoot of Rosminian Catholicism, whereby they would take a passive role in whatever happens. So for example, if there was a euthanasia case, they would happily just let the person die and not touch them and not feed them, because they're not taking an active role in killing the person, and so they're not breaking the 6th commandment, which is, thou shalt not kill. Now, as a Hindu, you would be encouraged to take the passive route as well. However, there is an element of the caste system whereby if the one member was a Brahmini monk, for example, you would have to pull the trigger to kill the 4. Now, this is something that is being changed throughout time. There's a neo-Hindu movement going on at the moment in India, and this is modernizing the way we look at religion. It's really provoking the questions in the East as to what the foundations of their religions can really be based on. Thanks.
Quickly, do any of you have any views on this issue you'd approach through your religion? Anyone in particular? You have to be afraid of speaking. Yeah, Amar?
Well, if you don't pull the trigger, then you can't be convicted for manslaughter. So.
You can't. You're right. That's an approach by law. Now, would you relate that in any way to your religion and any religious teaching or your values that you've sort of been brought up with?
Well, I mean, I'd say I'm an atheist, so I'd go by what the law says as opposed to what a religion would say. So
Fair enough. I think that's a really good way of approaching. Does anyone else agree with him? Or no one? Okay. Right, so this is case 2, the fat man argument. Now, so I'm going to explain it with this diagram. You have a person on a bridge, and there's a bunch of people on the train track who are, let's presume they're tied down and they can't move or get out of the way. So the person on the bridge, which is you in this case, can choose to push this fat man onto the track, thereby killing him, but stopping the tram and saving 5 people further down the track. So it's kind of gory image you've got to think about there, but effectively the fat man is stopping the train. Now, what you want to do... so, basically, now, you're saving 5 and you're killing 1, and there's a key distinction here, you're an active agent in killing a person. Now, how many of you think this is more wrong than the case 1 where you pulled the lever? I'd expect to, a vast majority. You're pushing a fat man off the bridge. Okay, there's quite a few who haven't raised your hands, because effectively what you're doing is, I guess if you boil it down in sort of chemical terms, you're doing the same thing, aren't you? You're pulling a lever, you're killing a man. On the other hand, you're actively pushing a man off the bridge. There's tons of things going on here which we need to look at. So, views. So I'm going to apply the same ethical sort of cases we applied earlier. So consequentialism. Are you still producing the greatest quantity of happiness? It's such a complicated thing because sure, everything's equal mathematically, you're doing the right thing. But what about the guilt you have to live for for the rest of your life when you kill this fat man? And I guess it's the same in the other case, but for some reason it's almost intuitive that this is how you'd feel. You'd feel even worse if you pushed a fat man off the bridge and you killed him, you took his life. And he didn't have a choice in the matter. So what about his happiness? In utilitarianism, John Stuart Mill, he marinates us up with this principle called the greatest happiness principle, just suggesting we should act in such a way as to produce the quantity around it all the ways you can measure the greatest happiness. So mine taken into account, yours taken into account, everyone's happiness is taken into account. And as a end sum, you see, okay, is it net positive or net negative? Because if it's negative, you don't do the action. Now, then the next one is situation ethics. So what if the fat man was your mother? I mean, I'd be worried if the fat man was your mother, but the fat man, I mean, what if it was someone who you were really close to? You wouldn't want to push them over the bridge. It would be again, it's a tricky one. You wouldn't do it. Deontology. This is straight up wrong. There's no two ways about it for multiple reasons. One, if you're going according to the Old Testament, you're killing. Thou shalt not kill. 2, so now Kant, who's in many ways the father of deontology, he formulates how to live a rationally moral life. So it's really rare to come across that because most people will be like, oh, you can't do that. If you guys remember our last presentation on rationalism and empiricism, we said you can't rationally prove morality, or rather it's very difficult to do so. And Kant sets out to do so. And he makes a categorical imperative, which is really just a big word for guidelines on how to live a moral life. Now, he formulates this in 3 ways, so it's like his 3 rules, so to speak. And the second one is you don't instrumentalize anyone else as a means to an end. That's wrong. And basically, in this case, you are literally instrumentalizing this fat man as a means to the end of stopping that train. And that's very wrong, according to deontology. Poor fat guy, right? Intention. I mean, it's a slippery slope. When does it get wrong? When is it permissible? What is your intention? Now, you know full well here you're pushing this fat guy off the bridge. You can't apply the doctrine of double effect anymore. There's also huge implications in this issue with taking away someone's free will. It's so immoral. If you're standing on the bridge and it's a really small train with a low power or something, and it's moving at a low momentum or something, and you could stop it by pushing you into the way, would you be okay with your free will being taken away to save the lives of 5 others? I doubt you would. There else, yeah, I mean, and the law wouldn't exactly consider you a hero. The law would, you'd certainly be put in jail for this. There's no question. This is the third and final case. So now it's very similar to the first case, but what's effectively happening is the train's heading for 4 people. If you press the button, it kills the one person and carries on its path to go away, having only killed one person. If you don't press the button because you're like, oh no, I don't want to get involved because then I'm manslaughter or whatever it is, or as Aman said, I mean, however you want to approach this. Now the issue you're facing here is the train has a loop. So if you don't pull the trigger, the train kills 4 people, circles around and kills the one person. It's kind of a lose-lose situation. How many of you would pull this lever? Okay,
If you pull the lever, wouldn't it just go back round?
No, it wouldn't, because if you pull the lever, it kills the one person and the loop doesn't go that way, it just keeps going straight. Whereas if you don't pull the lever, it goes straight. So if you think about it, the loop is only going this way. But if you go this way, the loop will not circle back that way. So, do you understand? Or, yeah, okay. So basically, how many of you would pull the lever? And Josh, I'm curious, you said you wouldn't pull the lever in any of these cases, so do you want to expand on why you wouldn't in this case? Because you effectively got 5 people dying.
Well, because it wouldn't be that guy's fault for standing there in the first place.
It wouldn't be whose fault?
The one guy over there. If the train is going to go and run over the 4 people, and that one guy is on the track, which the train wouldn't have normally gone to, it wouldn't have been his fault for standing there.
Oh, so you're looking at this from the perspective of the victim, and you're saying, okay, I mean, that's kind of a dangerous thing, because in the first case, what you've gone and said is, he's also faultless there. Poor guy, they're all just 5 victims tied down to a train tracks by God knows who. So, I mean, you're tied down to a train track, he's going to die in either case, you're still...
I mean, I'm in the train and I don't know that. I don't know who any of these guys are.
No,
Doesn't
you're
matter
not
what
on the
choice
train,
I
you're
make.
the bald man standing next to the train who pulls the lever.
Yeah, but I still don't know who the guys are.
No, of course you don't, but so what you're saying is he's going to die anyway, Tony. So if he's going to die anyway and the train's going to circle around and kill him, you could save the other 4's lives.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't pull the trigger.
Wait, what do you mean? I would pull the lever, so I run over the one guy.
Yeah,
and
and save the 4 people.
Yeah.
Okay, so Josh, you said you wouldn't pull the lever if in this case as well, and I was curious as to why you...
Wait, what? No, I said I'd put it for this case.
Well, because morally, I'm sort of nihilistic in such that neither of these decisions are any more right than the other. So what I'd be doing is I'd be looking out for myself in the eyes of the law. And, you know,
don't want to take the risk at all.
I mean, if I'm going to suffer legal repercussions and that's going to, you know, hamper my quality of life, then I'm not going to put myself out for a decision that's no more morally right than the other, you know?
Of course, but are you saying then the moral element doesn't come into it saving the lives of 4 people who have equally sort of long lives as you and like they have all the same experiences?
Well, no, I think that
so
whether...
you suffer jail time. I'm not talking about that. So you'd suffer jail time, but at the same time, these 4 people, that's 4 whole lives, they'd lose their lives as a consequence. And the one guy's going to die anyway.
I know, but ultimately, I don't think that the decision to only kill one person as the decision to kill 5 people, I don't think either of those is, you know, more morally right than the other.
Yeah, Tony, sorry, you were saying something? You wanted to...
Nothing.
Oh, okay. So yeah, now here's a sort of a rug under the whole thing. Yeah, now this gets a bit complicated, a bit tricky. So what is intention? Now, as science currently models things, the information you're taking in is being split up in more ways than you can imagine and being processed in tons of different places in your brains. So I perform a small experiment with you. Could you guys put your finger out in front of you? Just like that. Right. Now could you pull it really close, super close to your face, like this? And now close one eye. Can you see your nose?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, 99.9% of the time in your life, you're not seeing your nose, not because it's not there, because your brain is editing your nose out 24/7, because your brain's like, yeah, I know my nose is there, I don't need to like put it in every time I'm having a conversation, so it's kind of getting in the way, it's kind of irritating. So your brain is removing that. Now, here's the thing, we can see your brain takes out your nose, and I mean, this raises the issue, what else are you really in control of? What are we presupposing? What else has your brain already presumed? Now, there's a relationship between the mind when you make a choice, which has been proven. Even when I reach for this, my intention to reach for this has been decided by my brain 1.5 seconds before I actually reached to pick this up. That wasn't my choice. We're getting into mechanistic, sort of deterministic universe here. What is free will? To what extent am I really free? If you're not free and it's not your intention to pull that lever, you're completely blameless. It wasn't your intention. It wasn't even you doing it, arguably, to a certain extent. So this raises the issue of what else you're in control of, and aren't we presupposing that what we actually do and choose to do, and also like what extent our mind is making the decision for us is really what I'm saying. So now, finally, you're probably wondering, well, what are the practical implications of all of this? And I mean, you've seen this is a pretty unrealistic situation. I'm pretty sure the forces would get there in time to save all 5 people if there's a crazy, psycho killer tying people on train tracks. But you want to see a real life situation where it's actually happened. Aaron's going to talk to you about the Churchill dilemma.
Okay, so before I start, I'd recommend you all read this book, Would You Kill the Fat Man? It's a dumbed down version, and it's simple for me, so it must be simple for you all. So, I want to paint the picture, okay? It's June the 13th, 1944, 4:13 a.m., and you get a call. And your name is Winston Churchill. There's been an explosion 25 miles away from London, and it's destroyed a vegetable patch, and the next 11 bombs to follow are predicted to hit central London. This is the start of the Blitz. Now, you may have read about this, and you've seen that the names are being dumbed down by being called doodlebugs, and this was just for British people to feel really happy about what was going on and present it as a little thing. But this was no joke. Following this, on June 18th, 1944, the Guards Chapel was hit with 121 soldiers killed. So, you're in Whitehall, all the bureaucrats are there, you're Winston Churchill, you've got to stand up, you've got to make a decision. So Churchill gets up and he says, guys, I've got a solution, okay? All of these missiles are unmanned. So, if we can infiltrate the German intelligence and get them to hit further south, then we can avoid them hitting central London. But these areas further south are Croydon, Penge, Beckenham, Dulwich, Streatham and Lewisham. This will result in the death of the working class. 6,000 people ended up dying because this was implemented. But in the end, it potentially saved 10,000. So, what happened was, Churchill came up with this idea to send 2 double agents in, Zigzag and Garbo. And what they did was they infiltrated the German intelligence and they told them to bomb further south. So, okay, fine, it seems really nice. You know, you're saving more lives and you're saving more valuable lives potentially. But how do we value a life? 2 very famous philosophers, Iris Murdoch and Philippa Bondswat, lived in this area. They lived in Croydon, and every single day it's recorded that they would walk to work and see all the buildings hit. 57,000 houses were destroyed in Croydon alone. I'd like to ask you guys what decision you would make. So, following this is the Cold War, and Harry Truman has dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, one of which was called Fat Man. And Anscombe and Foote, who are the founding mothers of the Trolleyology, Foote, who founded Oxfam in 1940, are rebelling against Truman getting his Oxford degree for noble acts in war. Anscombe rose and delivered a very controversial speech to attack Truman's decision as the man who pressed the button on the bomb in 1975 at a lecture in Yugoslavia. This was crazy, because she was going against arguably the most powerful man in the world. Would you do the same thing? Thank you.
Okay guys, well, do you have any questions about anything to do with the trolley argument at all? Okay, yeah, there we go.
Do you think it changed significantly when it's 1 to 4 and when it's 1 to, say,
Great, okay.
500?
So this is a good question. I presume you're talking in consequential terms, in terms of greatest happiness now, because you're talking quantitatively. So basically, there's a mill that gives an example called Haydn and the Oysters. So how much do you enjoy Haydn's piece of music versus how much would 100 oysters enjoy their life? Because arguably, Haydn is far more valuable as a human being than one oyster. Everyone's in agreement. Now, you're Haydn against 2 oysters, okay, Haydn against 3 oysters, and you come against your question, 1 against 5,000. I mean, what's happening here? So, personally, I think as the number increases, intuitively, we would turn around and say, yes, if these people were all equal in this hypothetical world where everything's equal, you turn around and you go, yeah, if there's 5,000 people, there's 1, it's bloody obvious which one you're going to choose. And it happens every day in war, no matter what, in all situations, quantitatively you make these decisions, you want a better sort of mathematical, more GHP-oriented outcome. Now, the thing is, if you apply deontology or situation ethics to it, you'd have to look, is one of those 5,000 people Hitler or Gandhi or what? I mean, you need to look at those situations. But if you're putting that aside and you're saying, okay, it's a fair sample, a random sample, you don't know any of these people, 5,000 versus 1, on consequential terms, I would pick the 5,000. Deontologically, you're still in trouble, really. You're not going to be able to make the choice because the nature of the action is wrong, whether you're killing 1 or you're killing 5,000.
Well, I mean, along with deontology, because you can't possibly know 5,000 or 10,000 or whatever it is, you actually might be safer because you're taking that risk in statistics. And statistically, you're more likely to have why this person might go on to discover blah blah blah, might go on to save lives.
But of course, but before you even reach the outset of making that decision in deontology, you would say it's wrong to instrumentalize that one guy, Bob, who you had to instrumentalize to save the 5,000. So you're already going against second categorical imperative. But I believe, I think, and this would be something that's hugely debated upon, and what the route you're going down might eventually lead into sort of Anscomian virtue ethics sort of route, where you'd end up going what makes you more virtuous in this case, and that's a whole different area. But are there any other questions? Yes, thanks for your time.